y'all. My name is Jerome Scott. I serve as one of the advisors for student government, and I use he/him pronouns.
Thank you so much for your introductions. So we're going to get started with our first question. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah. Hello, my name is Bexon Ismatula. I'm a third-year health science major on the pre-med track, and I've been involved in ASU since freshman year and served as last year the Filipino Student Association's FSA Vice President of External Affairs.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your answer. Next thing we're going to ask, what has been your most meaningful involvement during your tenure at the University of Florida?
For me, I'm going to continue on what I just said. Being FSA's Vice President of External Affairs got to let me have a huge outreach on the Asian community with other organizations and produce goals that I felt were very meaningful. Whether it was a clothing drive for students, raising a lot of money through there, or the participation in organizations I got to actually venture connection with, for example, Cheese Plus, where we got to advocate for its situation with ICE. I think it was very meaningful, and I appreciated every one of those conversations I had with other people or just events in general, people who participated.
Thank you so much for your answer. Your next question is, have you ever led a team through a change or transition? What challenges did you face, and how did you overcome them?
I'm going to go back to the position I just talked about because I feel like there's a lot of meaningful things that happen. I had chairs, I have sports chairs and advocacy chairs under being external affairs representative, and it was found to me when I got the position that there's a problem between sports and advocacy. Advocacy itself first had a problem in which there was no interaction with people. It just became a speaking segment within our GBMs. And then in sports, it was low attendance. We had very low attendance. It was about to be close to be removed as a pillar at some point just because it was just really low. So I took my chairs and we all talked about the problem together, but we started brainstorming solutions because at the end of the day, my team with my chairs is not just a one-man show, it's everyone's working on it together. So I asked them what they felt like is needed, what they think change needed to happen. And for advocacy, we thought that there needs to be more interaction. You have to have participation in the audience to be more involved into these pressing matters. So our chair, Laura, she advocated for activities within the GBM to make them more interactive along with events themselves being placed. And we made us a deadline for that when we want that to happen, when we want to have meetings for it. Same thing for sports. For sports, we said to be more engaging, we need a further outreach. And because my whole job is communication with organizations, I play my part to communicate with other organizations and ask who wants to have sports events with us. And then I take them to the sports courts who would go ahead and manage and facilitate these events. And from then on, we each played our role together to create our realistic plan of a solution that we felt like was needed. And overall, was able to get an overhaul turn of attendance to the two categories that used to have the lowest attendance in FSA before to become relatively active in our organization.
Okay, thank you so much for that great answer. Our next question is going to be, explain a situation in which you were juggling numerous commitments all at once. How did you handle it?
Honestly, I think that's a very normal experience for anyone, on a board position, including myself. I feel like the best example was sophomore year fall, where I was helping out with obviously my board position. I had stuff for a big show, which is Deaf Talent Jam, which is it's a big just dance competition amongst a lot of the schools in Florida with all FSAs. Along with my classes, it was the first time picking up a minor, so business admin minor plus my major classes. It was a lot. But for me, the way I was able to at least manage to my fullest extent was just planning ahead. I think it's such a basic answer, but it really encapsulates what you need to be doing. Whether that's simple making a calendar. For me, calendars don't really work. I usually have to plan things week by week because I'm pretty sure everyone can confirm this, but everyone's week is never constant, right? There's things that bound to change or come and add. There's things that stay constant. So I'll go through the beginning of the week. For me, my week starts on Sunday always, and I would see what I need to do for there. And if things come up where I can't facilitate my task or facilitate my duty, I made sure that was prominent within my organization, within the people I'm working with. Hey, this week's really a bad week. I have X, Y, and Z lined up. Can we move this another week, or can we substitute? Or I find someone to communicate with who can relay me back information that I need help with. Just because there's so much obviously factors going on. There's only one of you as well, and overall any task.
Thank you so much for your answers, and we just wanted to ask if you have any questions for anyone on the committee.
No, not at the moment. I don't really believe I have any questions.
Thank you so much for interviewing with us today. You will hear from us soon. Expect to in the next week or so. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you so much. You guys as well.
Okay, you guys. Our next applicant isn't coming in till 1:30, so we do have like a little bit of a 15-minute break if you guys want to turn off your mics, turn off your cameras, and then we can resume.
Oh, yeah. Let me turn up the volume again. Can you say something else?
Hello?
Yes.
Hello, everyone. My name is Alexandra Adrian, and I currently serve as the Roots Agency Head for this term. Thank you so much for coming to interview us, and we'll have our panel introduce themselves.
Awesome. My name is Trungwen. I use he and his pronouns, and I will be going into this year as the Asian American Student Union co-president.
Good afternoon. My name is Taylor Blythe. I use she, her pronouns, and I serve as the 2026-2027 Black Student Union President.
Hey there, my name is Jerome Scott, and I serve as one of the advisors for student government.
Okay, thank you so much to the panel. So we're gonna jump right into it with our first question. Can you please tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, for sure. So very nice to meet all of you. My name is Leela Wycliffe. I use she, her pronouns. I'm a rising fourth year, and I am applying to be one of the executive vice chairs for the Asian American Student Assembly. I am majoring in advertising and international studies, and I've been involved in the Asian American community here at UF for the past 3 years.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your answer. Next thing we're going to ask, what has been your most meaningful involvement during your tenure at the University of Florida?
My most meaningful involvement, has to be with the Chinese American Student Association. It was one of the first organizations I found actually through AASA. I joined as a freshman, and then I became the vice president of culture, which plans the Mid-Autumn and Chinese New Year shows. And that was a very fulfilling experience for me, just seeing how I could connect with my culture and share it with other people. Excuse me. And being able to learn more about my culture. I am adopted, so finding new ways to connect my experience as an Asian American adoptee and portray that to our general body was very meaningful for me. And then I started my tenure as the president of the Chinese American Student Association this past year, which I have actually wrapped up most recently. And just being able to continue to lead people has been very fulfilling, and seeing people how they grow into their roles and support them has been very great. So, yes.
All right, thank you for your answer. Your next question is, have you ever led a team through a change or transition? What challenges did you face, and how did you overcome them?
Yeah, for sure. So just most recently, with our budgeting and our finances for the Chinese American Student Association, we recently lost our signature event status for our Chinese New Year show. So being able to figure out how we could continue having a growing show, because we've gone through multiple stages. It used to just be in the Rion Ballroom, and then it went to Wrights, and then it went to University Auditorium. And when I was vice president of culture 2 years ago, we finally made it to the Phillips Center. So when we lost our guaranteed funding, it was a bit of a question mark about how we could continue having our show, since we have never asked for that much budget through an event request. So along with my treasurer, our vice president of finance, we contacted student government finance just to ensure that we were going to request all the right things and be prepared to make sure nothing would be wrong when it was reviewed, and that it would be for sure approved and put in on time, since it is a first come first serve basis. So just being able to make sure all of our ducks were in a row for the first time in a couple years since we had signature event status was something that we had to manage and ensure that we were prepared and also have a backup plan in case that something did happen that did not go our way.
Thank you for that great response. That's something I really resonate with as someone who's had experience doing large student programming. So our next question is going to be, explain a situation in which you were juggling numerous commitments all at once, and how did you handle it?
Yeah, for sure. So I guess something that was most recent, when I was president of CASA, I really wanted CASA to be more involved in the different programming of the Asian American community, and that meant being more involved in stuff like AASA or the AAC community. So although I was president, my priority was my organization, of course, and my officers, but I did want to ensure that we had people to go out and represent, and if that meant it had to be me, then of course I would do it. So last year I applied to be AASA Tech Head, which was something that was manageable since I had experience in it, so I wasn't necessarily going into it blind. So that definitely helped. But I also had a large board to support me and stuff like that. And then I continued to try to get myself out there by signing up for ASU Unity Banquet as well as their advocacy committee, just trying to make time, because I feel like people think that there's enough time in the day, but there always is. To just like, if you sit down and schedule out your time, then you can always find a way to get more exposure and involve yourself in the community more.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your answer. Our next question is, how would you set clear expectations for your team, and how would you ensure those expectations are met throughout the development process?
Yeah, for sure. So as someone who's led committees in the past, and something that I would apply in this role in the event that I was selected for it, would be that setting clear expectations from the beginning, I think, is the best way to ensure things are followed through with. I think if you throw in a random expectation halfway through, it can confuse your committee members or the other people that you're working with. So I think transparency is something that's very important, to just be like, hey, this is what we have so far, and even if you don't have all the due dates done, or if there is still something that's in development but you do kind of need to explain it, then you just go, hey, it'll probably be late July that this will happen, or mid-July, just to set the expectation that, hey, we're working on it, we may not know an answer for it, but we're going to try to communicate it with you as best as you can. And it's just having that mutual respect for the people that you're working with, it'll hopefully be reciprocated back to you.
Thank you so much for your answer. And the last question we have for you is, do you have any questions for anyone on the committee?
I guess one question I would say is, how would you see, what is a goal you have for ASA this year in terms of growth, or what types of things we're platforming?
I don't know if you wanted to answer that, Trump, but I wanted to speak as the agency head. Okay, for me as the agency head, I would say my goal is just making sure that each program is there to support their respective demographics, and also continuing to grow and not stifle. I feel like during these times, a lot of people can feel like there's not a space for them at the University of Florida, and I think that's why Roots is very important to me, because it exists to maintain these organizations. So like you said, with the Chinese Student Association, you said?
Yeah.
How you guys lost funding, that's something I would never want to see happen, because now it's this is a step back when we've already made so many steps forward.
For sure.
Yeah, I guess I can piggyback off of that. I guess for me, having seen ASA start in the Phillips Center, that was my first ASA that I seen, and seeing it grow last year. Really just hoping to see it continue to grow as an assembly in the O'Connell Center. Just because we've done such a great job doing it in the Phillips in the past, and I really want to see it continue to look amazing and continue to grow inside the O'Connell Center, just because there's so much room in the O'Connell Center to grow, I think, and there's a lot of creativity that you can work on with the O'Connell Center. So I think for me, that's what I really want to see.
Yeah, great. Yeah, I definitely agree. Seeing my first ASA in the Phillips Center and seeing how it's grown from now has been really great. So
so much for interviewing with us today. Expect to hear from us within the week, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Awesome, great. Thank you so much for taking the time to meet with me today.
Bye. Alrighty, everyone. So that was our first 2 applicants for this morning. As you all know, we have 2 later in the afternoon at 6 and 6:30. And I just added an additional applicant because they told me that they could make it. It's going to be at 6:45. I've noticed that the interviews have been running a little bit shorter than expected. So I would expect within that 15 minutes that the current applicant will be done for the next one. But if not, I can let them know. We could always reschedule, put out another notice and meet again. But alrighty, I'll see you guys later today.
Awesome. Thank you.
Have a great day, everyone. See you later.
Alright, there you're on.
Yeah. Oh no, that makes sense. Wait, what text?
Sort of against this, but
Okay. Oh, okay. Talk to you later. Anyway. Yeah, I'll chat with you later. I'll chat with you later. Oh, so it's us chatting. And you know it. Bye. Okay, can someone say something so I can test the audio?
Hello?
Yes, yeah, it's working. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Alexandra Adrian. I currently serve as the Roots Agency Head for this term. Now I'm going to allow the panel to introduce themselves.
My name is Trunk Nguyen. I use he, him, his pronouns, and I currently serve as the 2026-2027 Asian American Student Union President.
Good evening. My name is Taylor Blythe. I use she, her pronouns, and I serve as the 2026-2027 Black Student Union President.
Hello, my name is Jerome Scott, and I serve as an advisor for student government.
Okay, thank you so much for the panel. Now we're going to jump right into it with our first question. Can you please tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hello, my name is Kelvin Nguyen. I am an incoming third-year finance major on the pre-law track. I use he, him pronouns, minoring in Spanish and economics. As far as my involvement within UF student organizations, I was the previous public relations director for the Vietnamese student organization. At the same time, I was the treasurer for the Lion Dance team, the new student organization, and this year I do currently serve as the internal vice president for LDT. But yeah, I'm from Gainesville. I was raised here, went to UF, and I'm really excited to be more involved or evolving my involvement within the Asian community and just the different cultures here at UF.
Thank you for your answer. Could you please tell us what has been your most meaningful involvement during your tenure at the University of Florida?
I'll definitely like to link it to my experience as far as bringing incoming freshmen into student life within UF, but more specifically introducing them to a different perspective on looking at their culture. So for me, my experience through Found at the time when it was called was a very good transition for me into not only just transitioning to college, but also knowing the opportunities that are available for me and how to access them. So I try to kind of channel that into my mentorship through Find the following year, serving as a mentor for 2 mentees, helping them have a similar experience to how I did within my transition into UF, and inevitably was able to put that into my experiences as the PR director, like I said, for VSO, as far as bringing in incoming freshmen, introducing them to the organization, and helping them have the best freshman experience possible. So that was definitely the most fulfilling thing that I've done as far as my involvement here at UF. And as far as how it went this past year, I do see myself taking the next step and doing that more large scale as far as logistical side of making sure that people are able to do that and overseeing the process of that.
All right, thank you for your response. Your next question is, have you ever led a team through a change or transition? What challenges did you face and how did you overcome them?
Can you repeat the first part of that question again, I'm sorry?
Yeah, of course. Have you ever led a team through a change or transition? What challenges did you face and how did you overcome them?
So like I said last year, while I was the PR director for VSO, I was also the treasurer. I was on e-board for the Lion Dance team here at UF. Since it was our first year last year, technically like we founded it the year prior and were able to have a successful first year. It came about because we were transitioning from a previous organization that did Lion Dance, but rather than being a student organization, it was an LLC. So it was a big change for us as far as adjusting to the regulations of like UF, student engagement, and making sure we followed all the guidelines as far as the logistical sides of starting the organization, running it, and working with SG as far as funding and things like that. So that was definitely the biggest struggle as far as it being our first year. I was very lucky enough to have an e-board that was very on the same track as far as being passionate about the organization, so that we were driven enough to have a good first year and transitioning into an even better second year, hopefully. But being able to lead not only the board of directors under me, but working alongside my e-board was definitely we definitely saw the fruits of our labor as far as it being our first year, going through the struggles of learning how to operate within SG as far as not having a precedent or any other past experiences to look back on besides what's provided to us directly from SG because it was our first year. But I do think it turned out really well, and it gave us a really good stepping stone into how we wanted to proceed into the next coming years.
Thank you so much for that great answer. Our next question is going to be, explain a situation in which you were juggling numerous commitments at once. How did you handle it?
I feel like it's getting kind of repetitive as far as like talking about my involvements, but definitely do want to come back to the fact that like I did have a lot of involvements as far as like not just extracurriculars, but along with being like on 3 e-boards, I was also on a committee for the Union of Vietnamese Student Associations of the Southeast, which I'm now the director for, and balancing that out with credit hours of classes and also 15 hours of work, like actual work at my job, and then any other non-cultural extracurriculars I was balancing at the time. I'll say I learned my lesson the hard way. Definitely found my limit as far as stress management, but also how much I could actually take on as far as my workload. Even though like it bit me in the butt, I would say at the beginning of sophomore year or towards the end of freshman year, it was a good learning experience because like I'm definitely adjusted to like what I'm comfortable with and very, very understanding of what I'm able to handle now. So was able to filter my involvements and the things that I put myself out for as far as like applying for this, limiting myself down to one other cultural board involvement, and things like that. So.
Thank you so much for your answer. I can definitely relate. How would you set clear expectations for your team, and how would you ensure those expectations are met throughout the development process?
I'm definitely a very big firm believer in the fact of like at least the people, whoever's in charge or leadership, their guidelines or their expectations, the standards that they set the quality and the output of whatever the team that's working under them is able to, or the potential that they're able to produce. So definitely start by not just having strict guidelines and explicitly writing them out for whoever's working under me, whether it's whatever board that I'm in charge of or any leadership position that I'm holding. From there, also having a backup plan I think is very important, something that I touched on in my application as well, because especially for like my experience as far as like whether it was fined or anything that I was able to witness from like a third party perspective or directly as a attendee or an audience as opposed to like leadership, just seeing like where, or it was very obvious when things didn't or contingencies weren't accounted for. So on top of having the expectation and standards explicitly stated, making sure that every situation has a backup and having those steps ready for whatever team you're leading so that they can be prepared in those situations.
All right, thank you so much for your answer. And your final question is, do you have any questions for anyone on the committee?
Yeah, so obviously I'm applying for this position because, like I said, it definitely relates to like my track as far as like what I got out of my VSO PR involvement as far as taking in incoming freshmen and making sure they had a good experience. Would you say that there's anything that you guys are looking in particular outside of like what's directly listed, right, in the expectations for like the application? Maybe more things like soft skills or things that aren't are more nuanced as opposed to like things that are like very hard to be followed. For example, like I would say like even though like a lot of like professional things or like formal things are expected, right, as far as like formalities, like maybe like more personal things characteristics?
I can definitely answer that question. I think for me, for each respective transition program, I don't want it to just be like the first 3 days before school and then you never see these people again. I really want to see like with each transition program that like whoever is leading them is able to cultivate relationships amongst the incoming students and the peer leaders, however each organization is set up, and then see maybe it's like fall programming throughout the semester, but just seeing that like they're able to maintain these relationships and gain something out of it. Like I know me, I was a packed peer leader this past year, and even some of the students that were on my team, like I still contact them. Like if I see something that I think could be applicable to them, I'll send it to them, and then they're able to come back and be like, wow, Alex, like I really enjoyed this opportunity that you like put me onto. But basically fortifying those bonds and helping like people get their foot in the door, because I feel like coming into college there's so much opportunity but sometimes you're not aware.
I'm glad you mentioned that, yeah, because I also have a really close relationship with the people that I was mentoring and that I was mentored by from my experiences in FIND and those transition programs. But like you, obviously, you guys have experiences within PACT, FIND. You guys represent like ASU, BSU. As far as this incoming year or this summer for this incoming transition program, do you guys see or do you guys have more visions or plans as far as like unity between those and having more activities between the different organizations and the transition programs? Because I do remember, at least my year, the first year that I was a mentee or I was being peer leader, there wasn't one. Last year we had a really good unity event, but do you guys have any visions or plans for this upcoming transition program?
You can go to that.
Okay, I'd love to answer that one. I think, again, I don't want to speak for everyone, but on behalf of BSU, we definitely love to see more collaboration on behalf of all the different multicultural organizations, you know, starting with the transition programs and bleeding into the year as well. We would love to do more events and more collaborations so people can, you know, see all of us kind of working together as opposed to us being so divided and so split. So I think if, you know, the freshman programs were to work together as well as the assemblies as well, I think that'd be something really, really cool that we could implement this year that's honestly never before seen. So I think, honestly, again, to answer your previous question, something that I would love to see is more collaboration between all the different directors and all the different vice chairs. I think would be super cool.
I also wanted to add, when I was a PAC peer leader this past year, one thing that they did after each day was that they had like programming events, like they had a karaoke night and a game night and a cookout. I think combining those things, because like it is the same 3 days. So seeing like if we could make the events bigger and more together rather than everyone having a separate thing, I think that could be an extension of like the one collaboration day that they did.
I guess I can like piggyback off of like Taylor and Alexandra from an ASU perspective. At least like last year, serving as external vice president of ASU, I did have to work a lot with like BSU and HSA and a lot of the organizations that do have transition programs, and I was able to work really closely and make a lot of friends through these orgs that I probably wouldn't have met if I didn't, you know, put in the effort to, you know, reach out and be involved in these other organizations. So for me, I definitely would like to see a lot more joint programming going into this upcoming year.
I'm glad we all have similarly ambitious ideas and visions for this, so thank you guys.
Thank you so much for interviewing with us today. I hope you have a great rest of your day. Expect to hear from us within this same week.
Sounds good. Thank you guys so much.
Bye.
Bye.
All right, you guys. So our next applicant isn't until 6:30. So you can turn off your cameras, turn off your mics, and then we'll come back. I can reach out to her and see if she wants to come early, but that's only if you guys don't want the recess. No? Okay, we can wait.
Yeah, I was like,
Wait to make sure.
Sorry, it doesn't make a difference to me. But it's good for everybody. But yeah, it is fine with me.
But yeah, just let me know.
I currently serve as the 2026-2027 Asian American Student Union President.
I mean, if you have to public notice it.
Good evening. My name is Taylor
We only
Blythe.
public
I
notice it
use
'cause
she,
the
her
code says
pronouns,
public
and I
notice.
serve
Oh.
as the 2026-2027
Yeah.
Black Student Union President.
Testing.
It's turning on. Does it not want to turn on? Oh, this is... I'll do this for you. Hey there, I'm Jerome Scott, and I serve as an advisor for student government.
Okay, now we're going to jump right into it with our first question. Can you please tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yes, so hi everyone, my name is Haley. I am a incoming senior on the pre-medical track. I'm studying applied physiology and kinesiology. Throughout my time at UF, well, I've always known I wanted to do medicine, but one of the passions that I think that UF in itself helped me discover was my passion for culture and diversity. A lot of what I do is within that realm. I served on the Indian Student Association's executive board last year. I led their first year leadership program, and I was also a part of FIND last year as one of the coordinators. I did the workshops, and so I'm really glad to be interviewing for this position.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your answer. Our next question, what has been your most meaningful involvement during your tenure at the University of Florida?
So I definitely have to give it to the directorship that I held my sophomore year as the first year leadership director. I think that it was extremely rewarding to me just because, one, it was like a very highly sought after position during like my sophomore year. And so when we were freshmen, we were applying for it. It was something that everybody really wanted to do. And I think that that came from the fact that you are basically leading your own organization as a sophomore. So that within itself is like a very inspiring and like changing experience. And on top of that, I basically like led a cohort of freshmen through their first year here, and I got to see them blossom. And I developed myself professionally, personally, and I also like made a lot of connections and still connected to these freshmen and my co. So I just think that that probably put the most impact on me here at UF.
All right, thank you so much for your answer. Your next question is, have you ever led a team through a change or transition? What challenges did you face and how did you overcome them?
Yeah, for sure. So last year I served, well, I'm a part of SOLOS, which is a volunteer-based organization here. We work with Shans directly, and we help the geriatric population, and we just provide companionship because a lot of times they're pretty overlooked and some of them are pretty lonely, and so we just try to help them cope a little bit. And so we went through like a huge change last year in terms of like the events that we were throwing. A lot of it was new. SOLOS is a like generally new organization on campus regardless. But my job, I was chief of community affairs, and so I held the first ever, like, it was like a health career panel basically, and it had never been done before, and it was open to like anyone, they didn't have to be in SOLOS. And so I like was spearheading that entire event, and so with my team, not only did I not know what I was doing, but I also had to lead this team that also did not know what they were doing. And so there was a lot of adaptability and there was a lot of quick thinking that I had to be able to do, whether it was on the spot or like a week before the event. There was a lot of communication that was involved, and I really learned how to be professional and like draw the line between being overbearing on some of these professionals that we were inviting, but then also being like reactive to them. And so I think that that was like a very cool experience because I had never done it before, my team had never done it before, and like I was just leading a completely new thing.
Thank you for that answer. I really resonate with you kind of knowing when to apply pressure and when to kind of step back. I think that's very important. Now for the next question, it's going to be, explain a situation in which you were juggling numerous commitments all at once, and how did you handle it?
I feel like that's like the story of my life really, because I just love to be busy and I'm so passionate about multiple things, but over the years I've kind of like condensed it a little bit to like make sure I'm doing things that I'm actually passionate about. But I'll tell you guys, like in my freshman year, I feel like I was just saying yes to everything, just like find my footing. And then on top of that, like you're taking classes and it's like a new environment, and like I was in a dorm, so like not only was I like managing school and my extracurriculars, but I was also like trying to like live this new life. And there was a lot of things that I was balancing there, I got really overwhelmed at times, and so I think that it was so important for me that semester to like learn how to brace myself and like create time for myself. And so I ended up doing very well that semester, but I just think that it took me some time to like understand how to prioritize and compartmentalize, and just use my time super efficiently. So that's how I kind of managed it.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your answer. Our next question is, how would you set clear expectations for your team, and how would you ensure those expectations are met throughout the development process?
Yeah, so I mean, I was in Find last year as a coordinator, so I worked very closely with the vice chairs. And so I like know a little bit about how they managed, and I think that it went great. But I'm just gonna build off of like their technique and like tell you guys what I think I like could have do better this year. For them, I think communication was good, but I do think that we needed to have a little bit more frequency when it came closer to like time for the actual program, just because there were some things that were lost in translation when we actually went into the program. So like, yes, setting clear expectations from the beginning is so important, and that's something that I will continue to do. But also not losing that momentum when we actually get into the weekend and like actually doing more of it, is I think how I would want to do that as well. And that could be like every morning, 30 minutes, we have like a meeting and discuss the game plans. Anytime I get like a change from Roots, because I know there was a lot of that going on last year, like whether it be budget or like something about merch, like I'm relaying that to everybody, and I'm being very like clear about what I'm getting told. And so yeah, I just think that being like that bridge between the people above me and the people below me is important.
All right, thank you so much. The final question we have for you is, do you have any questions for anyone on the committee?
I guess my only question is like, what is the direction that you want to see like the early arrival programs go in this year?
I can answer that question. Yeah, I'll answer that question. Kind of gonna be Alex, the agency head. She kind of hit the nail on the head really well with the previous interview. But I think something that we would love to see is obviously, giving these freshmen a really, really great transition, a really, really great time for those, 3 days and for the first week, but also continuing that mentorship throughout the rest of the year. I know a lot of the complaints that we get about these transit programs is you kind of forget about them and you don't hear from them again, and you're not able to mentor them and help them through the different challenges they have throughout their freshman year. So kind of being a place where they can always come back to, where when they're, having these challenges or having these difficulties, is something that I think will make these transit programs stand out so much more than, other programs.
Yeah, just to piggyback off of Taylor, I am almost looking for like a continuity after like the programs, like them continuing to get involved culturally and here at UF, especially like for myself. I was a Find peer leader last year. My two finders, one of them is actually a preview staffer now, and one is part of a really well respected dance org. So I'm really proud of those two, and I'm really like happy to see like my impact continue to see them like. It's like nice to see that like my impact as a peer leader like continues to follow them as they go into further into their college careers. So I'm almost like looking to see that kind of continuity when it comes to introducing the freshmen to Find and everything that comes with the welcome programs.
I have nothing else to add. I think the diversity presidents really touched everything. But if that is your only question, I wanted to say thank you for joining us today. It was lovely hearing from you, and expect to get a result back within the end of this week.
Okay, perfect. Thank you guys so much for your time.
Of course, have a nice day. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Alrighty, you guys. I did message the next candidate about coming on a little bit earlier, so we're not going to really be taking a recess. He should be joining soon. I don't want to just make you guys wait in silence.
So I did some more digging. So I want to share.
Should be on in 5 minutes.
So.
Okay. Hello everyone, my name is Alexandra Adrian and I currently serve as the Roots Agency Head for this term. Now I'm going to allow the panel to introduce themselves.
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Trunk Nguyen. I use he, him, his pronouns, and I am this year's Asian American Student Union President.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Taylor Blythe. I use she, her pronouns, and I serve as the 2026-2027 Black Student Union President.
Good afternoon, my name is Jerome Scott, and I serve as the advisor for student government, and I use he, him pronouns.
Thank you to the panel for introducing themselves. Now we're going to jump right into our first question. Can you please tell me a little bit about yourself?
Hello, everyone. My name is Elijah Sherman. I'm a third year, well, now rising fourth year computer science major. Some things that I'm focusing on right now, I'm focusing on trying to figure out ways to integrate like computer science into my life when it comes to other aspects, when it comes to like the organizations that I'm joining, and just trying to grow. Some hobbies that I have are running, working out, and watching movies.
Awesome, thank you so much for your answer. Our next question, what has been the most meaningful involvement during your tenure at the University of Florida?
The most meaningful involvement happened this past spring, well, and fall. I served as the vice president of Progressive Black Men Incorporated. In this role, I basically was overseeing all the, I guess, day-to-day operations of the organization itself. It's a community service-based organization. It's based on uplifting Black men and helping out the community. And the reason why this was my favorite out of all my involvements is because of the impact I was able to make. We ended up giving a bunch of money to different networks and community service organizations across Gainesville, and it was very impactful and it made me feel good.
All right, thank you for your response. Your next question is, have you ever led a team through a change or transition? What challenges did you face and how did you overcome them?
A time that I led a team through a change in tradition was this past spring, well, fall to spring, during my tenure as vice president of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. Going into that role, we had a couple brothers graduate, and in that role, they were held different positions that needed to be filled in. And through that, we had to assess the candidates in the chapter to see what committee best filled for them. And it was definitely a pretty hard process because some people just didn't fit into the role exactly, but kind of just going in and training different brothers made the process a little bit easier.
Thank you so much for your answer. How would you set clear expectations for your team, and how would you ensure those expectations are met throughout the development process?
Sorry, you cut out. My Wi-Fi's pretty bad. Can you hear me?
Sorry. Yes, I can hear you. Our next question was, how would you set clear expectations for your team, and how would you ensure those expectations are met throughout the development process?
The way I would do that was basically just like in the first meeting that we have, just basically laying out the expectations I have for the team and kind of just assessing everybody's different goals, trying to make one whole goal that we can all push towards, making sure that the event is ran properly and securely. And through this, just going through in the first meeting, just saying, oh, what expectations do you have for yourself in this role, and kind of just working along as a team to make sure that everything is executed and properly.
Right, thank you so much. And the final question we have for you is, do you have any questions for anyone on the committee?
Sure. A question for the Roots Agency Head. Basically, how do you plan to navigate your position while dealing with everything that's happening with DEI and stuff?
I feel like now more than ever, well, for one, that's a great question, but I think now more than ever, I think it's very important, like that rooting, excuse me, I think it's very important for Roots as an agency to exist because it provides like the support that these diversity organizations need. I feel like for me, like my focus is just like I actually mentioned this in an earlier interview when an applicant asked, but basically making sure that every program is not regressing, it's only moving forward. So I guess that would be my goal as the agency head to make sure that I can do all that I can to support each respective organization.
That's all the questions that I have. Thank you, guys.
Okay, thank you so much for meeting with us today. Expect to hear back from us within the week and have a great rest of your day.
You too, guys.
Okay, you guys, those were all the applicants for today. So we're gonna do a quick deliberation. First up, we have the applicants for AASA. I know Trunk AASU typically does have 2 people for each position. I think each candidate was very, very qualified. I know with Layla, she seemed to have a lot of experience, and I like how she touched on like issues that any organization may experience with funding. I feel like that's very important, knowing like how to budget when you're putting on large scale programming. And with Bexad, he just seemed very passionate. I feel like that's the type of people that Roots needs going forward to make sure these organizations are being executed to their fullest extent. But you guys come on.
Yeah, I definitely had a similar idea when, interviewing these 2 candidates. I was thinking of them 2 together. I think they would mesh really well together. I think a combination of the second candidate's experience and just kind of her experience in the role, putting on these large level programs, and then the first candidate's passion, and he had a lot of different ideas that I think would go really, really well into kind of this new experience that would bring for both students on this campus and freshmen as well. I think is something that would be really interesting to see. I'm really excited to see them work together, so I think that would be a very positive match.
Yeah, I would definitely have to agree. At least for like Leela, I've worked with her personally. Last year I was multimedia coordinator. She was technical coordinator. And she was very on top of her stuff. She seemed very well equipped, having the experience as vice president of culture. So I think she would be a very good fit to work with the O'Connell Center, just because she knows, the staff, and she's very well aware of all the policies that come with working with the O'Connell Center. With DEXOT as well, being part of the Filipino Student Association, which is a very, very large organization. So it requires a lot of, responsibilities, a lot of time management, a lot of going back and forth with working with other people, especially being a vice president of external affairs. So I definitely think the 2 would work very well together, and I think their talents combined as well would definitely be really good for ASA in general. So I think for me, as like ASU president, I definitely would agree that the both of them are definitely like well fit for the role.
So given that deliberation, I would say that we can all say yes to those 2 applicants for Asian American Student Assembly.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, next up for Find. For Calvin, I think I really enjoyed how personable he was in his interview. I feel like he had a lot of experience that was pertinent to like the organization. And I feel like for me, on top of experience, I just think emotion is very important as well, because anyone is able to do the job, but like when someone is more emotionally dedicated or like kind of like has a skin in the game, for lack of better words, I think it makes them way more qualified. And I think that really stood out to me when he was interviewing.
Yeah, for sure. He was, like you say, he's very personable. He's very easy to talk to. I can definitely tell. I think especially with this specific program, it's important to be able to go to this person who's spearheading this whole, experience, and being able to talk to them, being able to voice your concerns. I think it's important for freshmen to be able to do that without feeling uncomfortable or anything like that. And I think he has all those qualities. And And yeah, like I said, he had a great interview. He was super easy to talk to, and his experience speaks for himself, his professionalism as well. So I think that goes to show that he'd be an excellent person in this position.
I also wanted to add, Trump, sorry to interrupt you. I like the fact that he was concise. I really like interviews when someone can convey their thoughts like in a basically like short answer rather than like going like on a long sprawl. And I thought that was very good. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yes. I've personally worked with Kelvin for a very long time. One of my first friends at UF, super genuine person. Really love, really inspired by his professionalism. He's been like one of my greatest inspirations, like since coming to college. I really, love that guy to death. So yeah, if he ever sees us, hey. But yeah, no, I love Kelvin. His work speaks for himself. As a public relations director for the Vietnamese Student Organization, which is one of our largest mentor-mentee programs here in the Asian American Student Union. For our mentor-mentee kind of like powers the kind of freshman engagement. The more active your mentors are, the more active your mentees are, which are freshmen usually. And I think like this past year, as an ASU e-board member, like we've seen so much engagement come from VSO, and so much of it comes from mentor-mentee.